All right, let's go ahead and get started today. We are all here, as you know, for this SC chat, which is really focused on coaching and what coaching is like as a service coordinator, because there are some unique aspects to coaching and how that looks and works in the different roles that and the different responsibilities that service coordinators have with families and the different ways that they might interact with the family. So we have brought in the wonderful and fabulous Casey Stultz, who I'll introduce you to in a moment. But first, I wanted to draw your attention to something that is new to our products, our sessions, our time together. Anything done by VEIPD, you guys will now see in this top right-hand corner, you'll see a mark that says family-centered coaching with a little key graphic. And if you look closely enough, you'll see a little pyramid next to that key. We sent out a constant contact message earlier this week, letting you all know about why these keys are there. Keys are there to help you all be able to begin, and all of us be able to begin seeing how the work that we do in professional development really aligns already and so well with the pyramid model framework practices. And these are key practices. There's 6 of them. In chat, Seth has put in a link to that constant contact that explains how we're going to be using these graphics, these keys in our time together and in our products that we do from here forward to help everybody really, again, be able to get a strong foundation and center in this pyramid model framework work that we're doing in Virginia together. All right, so that's enough from me on that. Let's take a look next. I'll introduce you briefly to Casey. If you'll go to slide 2. I just want to let you guys know too that the reason why my camera is not on right now is I'm having some technical camera difficulties that I was not able to problem solve prior to this. So that's why my camera isn't on. I've tried. So instead, it's just Casey by yourself being spotlighted over there. So you're on, Casey, but I'm here in the background. So Casey is a developmental interventionist and a service coordinator. And she's also a certified pediatric sleep consultant. I know I was really in need of that and got a lot of support from pediatric sleep consultants when mine were little. She works with the Infant and Toddler Connection of Harrisonburg and Rockingham. And she'll let you know how long she's been there and all of that in just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and let you know, if Seth, you'll go to the next slide. What we're talking about today with coaching also not only supports and aligns with our pyramid model framework, but it also supports deepening your knowledge related to family-centered practices, which are a key area 2 of the knowledge and skills for service coordinators that's really specific to your work. So I won't read this to you, but just so you know, everything that you guys are talking about today is really you know, a core part of the practices that you all use every day with families. All right, Casey, turning things
All
over to you.
right. So before I jump into our first kind of interactive part of this, as Lorelai shared, I've been in early intervention for the past 11 years since I graduated. I've worked both in the Virginia area as well as out in Colorado for a couple years, providing service coordination and developmental services. And I really do love coaching and really helping families. I feel like it's such a great way to build their competence and confidence in meeting their own needs and their kiddos' needs. So it's something that's really near and dear to my heart. So to start out, I wanted to do a stamping activity with everybody and just kind of gauge for everyone that's here today what your comfort level is with incorporating coaching during service coordination, between making progress but not super comfortable and those that are feeling comfortable but not yet confident. And I can say, even for myself, having been in EI for 11 years, I would still put myself between comfortable and confident. And it really depends on where I'm growing for that month or how where I am in that process of meeting families. So I'll give it one more minute just to see if anyone else is adding in before we move on. like they've slowed down. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next one. Thank you guys for your first stamping and letting me know where you are. Hopefully by the end of this presentation, we'll have people moving more towards that comfortable range with more strategies. So before we jump into specific strategies, I just wanted to go ahead and quickly review the 5 characteristics of coaching. The definitions that I am sharing with you today come from the Yes Service Coordinators Can Coach webinar that's found on the VEIPD website, and it's as shared by Lisa Sheldon and Dathan Rush. So starting with observation, when we think about observation, that is the examination of another person's actions or practices to be used to help them develop new skills, strategies, ideas, or to support their active engagement in the EI process. The next characteristic is action/practice, which occurs either during spontaneous or planned events, visits, interactions with families. As service coordinators, we know we oftentimes just have phone calls, texting, email interactions. It's not always going to be in person like it is for our providers. So those events or interactions that occur within the family's real life situations, challenges, things that they're going through, and those moments that provide the caregivers with opportunities to practice, refine, analyze their new skills or existing skills, actions, or just kind of their patterns of thinking, maybe how they are analyzing the problems and challenges that come up and what they are already doing to kind of address them. The next characteristic is reflection, and that is really thinking and analyzing the existing either thoughts, actions, or patterns to determine how those actions might need to be changed or modified to work towards a family's goal. And please, if you have questions as I'm kind of going over these, feel free to type them into chat and I will review them. The next one is feedback. And feedback can be a few different things. That can be the information provided by a coach based on your observations of the caregiver, things that the caregiver is sharing with you about actions they've already taken or strategies tried, information shared by the caregiver or by the coach to expand that family member's understanding about activities, routines, resources, really anything that you're trying to share with them. But feedback can also be affirmative statements, things that you are saying to recognize the information that families are sharing with you, especially during kind of intakes, assessments, or really throughout all the work that you're doing with them. I hear you, I respect you, I value what you're sharing with me. And then the last characteristic is joint planning, and that is the agreement between the coach and the caregiver on the actions that are going to be taken between contacts or visits. So as service coordinators, as you know, we don't always have those face-to-face. It might be you have a phone call with the family and you make that joint plan and you're going to text them to follow up on it. So as we're kind of talking today, just keep in mind that all those modalities of communication can incorporate these characteristics of coaching. So next, I would like to move into another stamping activity, and I would really like for you guys to give me that feedback on which of these characteristics do you feel is the easiest for you to incorporate into service coordination? What do you feel like is naturally built in that you'd see yourself doing? And you're more than welcome to stamp more than one of these if you can just kind of follow along on the line for these. And I know for me personally, observation and joint planning are typically the two that I feel most comfortable with. I see a lot of people. Oh, I'm seeing a lot in all of the categories. That's awesome. A lot of feedback. Definitely a lot more in observation, a lot of feedback. That's great. Kind of fewer in that reflection, less in the action and practice. Yep, that can definitely be. It's kind of hard to think about action and practice and service coordination when we're not always practicing those strategies that providers are doing, right? Awesome. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on from this one because I feel like there's a lot of good feedback. See a couple last stamps coming in, and I'm going to move on next to a stamping for the challenging piece of coaching. What do you feel like is the hardest thing for you as a service coordinator to incorporate into your visits or interactions with families? Immediately seeing action and practice like we just reflected on. Some reflection, some joint planning. And I'm curious, as you guys are typing in the challenges, or sorry, stamping the challenges, if anyone wants to drop into chat why you selected which of the characteristic that you did, that would be great to know and just have a little bit of idea on as well. But it looks like the majority that I'm seeing are action and practice right now. Give it just a couple more seconds to see if any more stamps come in. If someone types something in chat, I will definitely come back and reflect on it, but it looks like things have kind of slowed down. So let's go ahead and move on to start talking about strategies. How do we incorporate coaching into service coordination? One of the biggest kind of aha moments for me was really realizing that coaching is fluid and dynamic. It's not necessarily a set step or set progression of those 5 characteristics. You're often going to be going from one to another, maybe back again. You might have several moments of observation or reflection throughout interactions with families. And there might be times that you don't incorporate 1 or 2 of the characteristics, and that is an okay thing. That to me kind of helped me be more comfortable with incorporating coaching into my interactions. And the other thing that I would say has been an aha moment for me was trusting the process of coaching, especially when it comes to helping families learn to navigate and find resources on their own. When I first started, I was definitely really eager to just share information with families, give them all the resources that I knew of to help solve whatever problem it was that they were willing to trust in me and share with me. But over the past few years, it's really one of my growing points is noting that those families that I was just handing the resources or really kind of solving those problems, they weren't growing in their own ability to address those. And I was often still getting calls and texts after their child had graduated from early intervention because they weren't yet confident in finding support on their own. So kind of just sharing my own personal experience with that. And of course, I am still growing and learning new ways to incorporate coaching as well. So thinking about service coordination, as we know, it looks really different than what providers are doing in early intervention. So I would love to hear in chat, what are some things that come to mind in your role as service coordinator that you feel are unique in that role that providers are not doing? One of the things that I thought about was being that team leader or really the facilitator of the meetings when we meet for assessments and IFSPs transition, being that, again, the team leader, the facilitator. What other thoughts do you guys have? If you can type them into chat. A mediator, that's a great one. Oh yeah, thanks Lorelai for that tidbit. If you would rather share verbally, that's great. Paperwork, absolutely. Being the gatekeeper of services, being the buffer between the family and providers, right? That person that builds trust with the families for them to share how they are feeling about how either the providers are working out, how they're building relationships, or even how services are going. Facilitator, yep, that's an important word. Any other thoughts? I know another one that stands out for me. Yep, coordinating between agencies. That's where I was just heading, between agencies and medical offices. I know that I spend a lot of time calling doctors' offices, requesting medical records, trying to coordinate care or share why our program or our providers are doing what they're doing with families. Those are lots of good ideas and thoughts. And again, all of those things that you guys are highlighting that are different for service coordinators, different responsibilities, also impact how coaching will look different in our roles versus the roles of providers, coordinating with schools. Yep, coordinating transition, and it might not be schools, it might be outpatient clinics, it could be coordinating with daycares, other agencies like that. Thank you guys. Um, so before we start kind of diving in, yep, Jasmine, we have so many hats that we wear, especially if you're a dual provider or even just as a service coordinator. So I wanted to share some specific examples that I have found that relate to service coordination when we're looking at coaching, and how they have been important for me. And it looks like someone might still have their stamp tool on. So if you can just go ahead and exit out, that would be great. So in thinking about these characteristics, I'm going to go over a couple of my examples, but as I'm talking, please feel free to type into chat other ideas that you have that immediately come to your mind. So starting with observation, I a lot of times think about observing body language, right? We're the first ones in with a family, the first ones really kind of gauging their comfort with early intervention services or with maybe the development of their child. So we're doing a lot of observation of their body language, their tone of voice, maybe their interactions between each other in the family, between the caregiver and their child, as well as the interactions with us as service coordinators or as providers. We are using those interactions and we'll kind of use that feedback or reflection as well in those observations. I see that you are really responsive to his needs and it seems like he trusts you. But what other ideas of observation do you guys have as it relates to service coordination, things that you all have noticed in your practice? I'll give you guys a second to type it out. And this could also be observation of providers' interactions when you're joining those visits with providers in a family's home, noticing the interactions, what things are going well, how the child's responding. Are there any other thoughts? Following through on strategies or understanding of those strategies, absolutely. Observations of no-shows, I think that absolutely counts, Jennifer, and what that could be telling us and maybe how that's going to open doors for conversations with that family about what's going on. Do they have other life priorities that are maybe more important, meeting those basic needs over our services at this time? Is it maybe something that needs to be addressed with the providers? Referrals coming from the doctor's offices, the family may or may not know. So it's somewhat being persuasive and selling EI. Yeah. And Sarah, I think that's an important observation, especially when you make that initial phone call, right? And you can tell by the tone of voice, maybe whether or not that parent was expecting your call and their comfort level at that point, as far as who you are. And I also noticed that for referrals coming from CPS in my own practice. Thank you guys. The next one that we're going to move into is action and practice. And same with this, if you can go ahead and type in maybe some ideas that you're already thinking about as I share mine, that would be great. So action and practice, one thing that I really like to do is giving handouts on the EI process, especially at intake as we prepare for assessment with sample questions as far as what the family might be asked during that assessment and IFSP meeting. As you guys know, it's a little bit different for us because we're so used to doing this all the time. But for families, this might be the first time they're ever going through our assessment process. And it can be pretty overwhelming with the number of questions that are asked, not only about their child's development, but about their family routines, about their priorities and concerns. So sometimes giving them that handout ahead of time so that they can start to plan and prepare for that, write down what they want to share, how they want to share it can be helpful. And I also find that as far as helping a family prepare for the transition planning conference, kind of reviewing what that's going to look like, but giving that family space and time to think about the questions that they want to ask. What are some of their concerns? What are they hoping for their child? And then planning for that meeting with the school, with the outpatient clinic, things of that nature. As I wait for other ideas to come in chat, one other one that stands out to me that I've done several times is sitting with a family as they are calling different resources in the community, especially Medicaid to apply, the WIC office, or clothing pantries, food pantries. They might not feel super comfortable making that call completely on their own, or maybe it's a family that can't always find the time to follow through. But if you build that into the visit, you are doing that action with them. You are helping them make sure they meet those needs just by sitting with them as they are doing that. Are there any other thoughts from everyone here today as far as action and practice? I haven't seen any come through. Oh, questionnaire. Yep, Cassidy, great. Questionnaires to prepare for IEP meetings. Absolutely. Especially if you feel like the family's priorities haven't necessarily all been heard. Visiting daycares with the family, absolutely. So going along with them and ensuring that that visit happens to help with transition. Yep, there's been several families I've gone to daycares with, or even outpatient clinics like the private therapy. I've gone with them for those initial meetings as well. And even though I'm not the one leading the discussion or prompting questions, just sometimes that physical presence can help them to be advocates for their child, or you might be able to remind them of questions they've brought up previously. Thank you guys. That's great. The next one that is on this chart and next characteristic is reflection. So go ahead and type into chat as well if you have ideas of things that you're already doing to incorporate reflection into the families that you are working with. One of the biggest pieces for me that I think about is the utilization of open-ended questions and how that really leads us to gain more information from a family. Observe maybe how they reflect upon their day. You might build observation into the reflection as you note their body language as they're sharing this information. But yeah, sharing what their priorities are and using these open-ended questions really helps to facilitate information sharing, which is one of our major roles as a service coordinator. I also tend to use open-ended questions with families when I ask them about how services are going or what they know about resources that are available to them. For example, you shared last month that you ran out of your food stamps earlier in the month. What happened for the rest of the month? How did you guys get through that? And listening to what they are sharing before I jump into feedback, or kind of the joint plan with them. And thanks, Lorelei, for dropping that into chat. The reflective questioning framework, so kind of a guide for open-ended questions, is available in the Padlet as one of our resources. And if I see any other reflection come through, I will note on that. So Cassidy, repeating responses to ensure that I'm interpreting their reflections correctly. So what I hear you saying is, yep, so that can lead to reflection, and that can also help further that discussion, right? Help lead for more information sharing if you didn't quite hear it right, or it might make the family feel like you really are listening to them, and it opens that door for them to be more comfortable to share more. Great. And I think Cassidy, your response can also fit into the next characteristic, which is feedback, right? So feedback, I will start with affirming with what a family says. Thank you for sharing this. I understand what you're saying. You sound really excited about your child's new skills. It sounds like services with the physical therapist are going well. All those are examples of feedback. Feedback can also be as you're developing the IFSP after really listening to what a family has shared. The feedback comes through in, I heard that this was important to you. How can we build this into the IFSP? And feedback to me is also in our role as a service coordinator, the sharing of knowledge, right? So after we've gone through, for example, a family trying to access a resource like a food pantry, they have shared what they know about how to access food through family members, through food stamps. They know of one food pantry on, Main Street that they have gone to. Feedback can also be that sharing of, I'm glad that you know of these resources. Here's one or two more that I know about that could be helpful. This is where I think of service coordinators really tending to shine. We have all this knowledge about resources. And what we're saying with coaching is that you don't have to gatekeep those. It's really helping a family find them, but it is absolutely still okay for you to share them as well. And as you know, all families have different levels of support that are needed. There might be some families that you are starting out with that need a high level of support. You might just need to give them some of these resources to meet those needs immediately. But then as you work together, you can start to build in more coaching and kind of scale back that support. As with the others, if you have other ideas, please feel free to type them into chat and I will kind of pay attention to that as we're going through joint planning as well. The last one being joint planning. So when I think about joint plan, a lot of times we think about what is the family going to do before the next visit, before the next contact. But this is also what you might do as the service coordinator. So you might both be looking at resources to help a family meet their clothing needs or to find toys, to find diapers. And it could be the joint plan is both of you are going to do your research. And then during the next contact, you come back together and the family shares what they have found. And then you, as the service coordinator, share what you have found as well. The joint plan could be after a discussion about how services are going or how a relationship is with a provider, that family feeling like, okay, I'm going to talk to our occupational therapist during the next visit and share that the last few strategies I haven't really felt comfortable incorporating. That's why I haven't had the follow through and having that honest discussion. And then your portion of the joint plan as the service coordinator is to follow up with the family after that visit to say, hey, how did that conversation go? What did you notice in your relationship with the provider? Do you feel comfortable? Is there anything else that I can do to support you moving on? Does anyone else have other ideas for joint planning based on your experience or things that stand out? One second. And if you don't have anything in mind right now, that's okay, because our next activity is going to be to break up into some breakout rooms and really practice and talk through some strategies and ways that we can incorporate this as SCs together, kind of building upon each other's knowledge. I don't see any coming through, so we're going to go ahead and move ahead. Oh, Jasmine just typed in summarizing the visit and giving the family opportunities to share their questions and last minute thoughts. And Jasmine, was that for the joint plan? Yes, perfect. Thank you. So, yep, summarizing everything that you guys talked about during that visit, whatever it might be, share, and then the family asking any last questions or any other thoughts. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. So, in thinking about our roles as service coordinators, a lot of what we do can fit into these three key roles or responsibilities of service coordination. So participating in the EI process and ensuring that families are active participants, that we are planning with them, not for them. The second one being the sharing of information, really encouraging families to share what's important, what's important to them, what they know about their family, what they know about resources, what they know about the EI process. And then the last one is accessing resources and solving problems. So this is a lot of times as families are within our services, those things that pop up that they often reach out, I need help with. This is that category. So what we're going to do is break out into groups for about, I would say 12 minutes or so and discuss how we would incorporate coaching into helping families in one of these three areas. So let's go ahead and jump into reviewing the Padlet quickly. Thank you guys I could see the responses coming in as you were in your breakout rooms. And something that is neat about this Padlet is that after today's webinar, you will still have access to it. I believe Lorelai shared that it will be posted on that service coordination page as well, so that you can continue to look over these ideas, come back, you can look at the resources. But I just wanted to review what you all came up with for some of these columns or the responsibilities that we assign. So starting with participating in the EI process, ideas that you guys had for coaching for this category was helping family with education prior to the initial assessment, finding out what they know about early intervention, what by asking straight up, what do you know about early intervention? And I think that's a great open-ended question so that you can also jump into sharing information. Let's see, checking to see what information they would like to share with others. And that could be others thinking about others on the EI team. It could be about daycare setting. It could be the school. It really could be what do they want others to know that are involved with their child? What's a time of day that you're seeing this come up, experiencing difficulty? Yep. So using that reflective questioning. Another reflective questioning, asking about what a typical day looks like for them and the child, and what are some of the daily challenges. Yep. And those are natural questions that we're already asking because they're a part of the IFSP, right? So my guess is that a lot of us are using way more of the coaching characteristics than what you recognize in your everyday interactions. More reflective questions. Yeah, tell me more about that. It's a great question that helps parent express themselves in more details. And I think it also helps solidify that relationship, right? It's showing that you're interested in what they're sharing and you do want to know more, even if it's about the tough things, the challenges they're having. What have you tried? And then reflect back what they said. Give positive feedback for their efforts. Absolutely. So starting with that reflection, and that also builds into the action practice, right? What have you already tried? And that gives you that starting point for how can we modify that if it wasn't quite successful? And yep, praising the parents for recognizing the need in their child. That's great, guys. So moving on. So sharing information. I see checking in and making sure that the families have the capacity and space for the meeting. Absolutely. And that can be mentally, that can be physically, emotionally. There's a lot of things that impact families, especially when you have children that might be what I like to call neurospicy, neurodiverse, and it's not maybe what they were anticipating. Reminding the family that the IFSP is a working live document. Absolutely. And for sharing information, sharing that they can change their priorities, they can change the goals, that we can really reflect what is important to their family. And that ensures that they are still active participants in this process. Giving families permission that it's okay if something doesn't work out or if we need to shift something. Absolutely. We all need to recognize that not everything's going to work, that we all make mistakes. And that is part of that reflection and feedback characteristics of coaching. And then accessing resources and solving problems. So in this column, I saw a lot of ideas of resources that could be shared. So sharing internet access to apply for Medicaid, that to me would be part of the action plan, right? Because you can share your work computer so they have the ability to do it, but they are the ones actually working through that application. Giving transition brochure, list of resources, referrals to Moms in Motion with authorization to exchange the information, sharing the ARC New Path Family Support Network for Medicaid, sharing the benefits. Absolutely. So as we kind of covered earlier, we know that service coordinators have a wealth of information and resources, right? We, through our experience, we tend to gather all of this information and we keep it knowing that more than just one family is likely going to need it. So as we think about accessing these resources and solving problems, I would just encourage you to sometimes practice that pause, not necessarily withholding the information, but using some of that reflective questioning, using your observation and feedback to gain more information about what a family already knows, what they have tried before you just start handing them the information, so that they become more independent in their ability to pursue it or to find these things out on their own. But I love all of the ideas that you guys have popped in. It really shows me that you're thinking about coaching, and in chat, either thumbs up, thumbs down, using the emojis, a yes or no. Has doing this webinar kind of given you maybe more of an eye opener that you're incorporating coaching more than what you truly think you are? Maybe you just didn't apply the characteristic terms to everything that you're doing in these interactions. I know personally, it's not something that I think about during every interaction with family. I'm not actively thinking, okay, how can I reflect with them? What is our joint plan? It's just something that I'm naturally doing. I see a couple thumbs up coming in, a couple more thumbs up. can do yes, no if you don't know where the emojis are. Totally cool. I'm not the most technologically savvy person. Great. I'm glad to see a lot of the thumbs up. Yeah. Awesome, guys. Well, I would like to leave you with a few parting thoughts. I know we're getting close to the end of our time. The two main things that I would like for you to kind of take away and think about is that coaching is fluid and it's going to look different for your interactions with each family. You are naturally already incorporating some of these things into each interaction, whether it's a phone call, a text, a visit with a provider, a visit by yourself, an intake, everything that we do. I think you are naturally already building it in, and it's okay if you don't hit every characteristic. Service coordination is totally different than working with a family as a provider. And then really practicing the pause, giving that family the space and the time to either practice seeking these resources, to ask their questions, to think about how they want to participate, really in anything that you're doing to support a family, giving that pause and being okay with it, not just jumping in to solve all the problems or to hand all the resources or to plan for the family. So, those are the things that I wanted to share with you guys. And I really thank you for taking the time out of your day to join this webinar with us.
All right. Well, thank you, Casey. This was really, really fabulous in so many ways. You all, Seth, if you don't mind going to the next slide, you all, I think we're a little short on questions and discussion time. You all have Casey's email address here, should you have any questions. And also remember that the Padlet 2 is a live document. So should you have resources that you find later and want to share, Casey and I both also get emails when somebody adds something or a notification. So it'll be wonderful for us to be able to look over, respond to the group, that kind of thing. So just know that that's there. I also wanted to let you know about our VEIPDs resources on coaching. So Seth, if you could just stop sharing for a moment. Again, I know we're short on time. I just wanted to share my screen for a moment to show you all. Oops, just a moment. It's gonna share the wrong screen, but I'll get to the right one. Here we go. Actually, it's this one. So if you come to our site, which is veipd.org, and you come on over to an easy way to find it is to either in the search bar, put in coaching, or over here under EI topics and tools. If you come on right down to topics and trends, you'll then see in the right-hand column an alphabetized list of topics and trends, and coaching is one of those topics and trends. And we have this wonderful landing page of resources. All of the resources that we put in the Padlet are actually all here too. And you'll see a real diversity of modalities to learn from here. So I'd love for you all to know, just to bookmark this, know that it's here. And then for those of you who don't know, under topics and trends too, if you come up here and there, we also have, if you go scroll down to the S's, we also have a page just dedicated to service coordination. And that's where this recorded version of the SC chat will land, along with the link to the Padlet and also just individual links to the resources for those who are blocked from the Padlet. So we thank you for coming. We also ask that you check your email, because there is where you're going to get your, in your email, you will get, so I'm going to stop share now. You will, oh, Seth has it up. Seth, you're so fast. All right, so in your email, you will find a link, or you'll find a message that links you to an evaluation form. That's where we'd love to get your feedback on what you learned today, what we could be doing differently. And also, guys, another really important thing on the SC chat is a request for topics from you all about things. We do these about every 3 months. So if there is a topic you all would like to talk about, please, please put that in there and let us know. And then once you complete that, you will get your certificate for acknowledging your time here today with us. All right, so if you have questions about coaching, you've got Casey's email. And if you have questions, comments, or feedback on SC Chat so you'd like to share, you also, at the end of this presentation, have links to myself and my other team members, Lisa, Terry, and Corey Hill. All right, thank you to Seth Buffkin behind the scenes, and Morgan Colleton too, who are team members who really support all of the tech that we do.